Okay, so before starting this video, I want to say I have 1,401 hours of this game, so I do have some legitimate grounds to review the game. And I started this thread on Reddit, and then noticed a lot of other threads that were quite similar, because quite a lot of people are kind of annoyed that they've done a DLC for an early access game which isn't actually finished. And in my eyes, it doesn't matter what you paid, whether it was $20, £20, whatever you want to call it, £5, whatever, you have paid for that game. And their duty is to finish that game and keep adding until the community and the dev team feel that it's accomplished its goals. Has it done that? Because as far as I'm aware, I don't think that it has, because they haven't even finished their update schedule. But before I get into that, I want to kind of just point out a few things. Right now, ARK is still in alpha. And alpha means you're adding content, not working on other projects. And one other thing is that if you can transfer the stuff from this DLC to the base game, and considering you've added dragons and massive golems, how is this going to balance out? Because I can't see a T-Rex faring very well to a giant rocky golem. Although I am aware these things may not actually be as powerful as they look, so feel free to hit me up if you actually know any details of the, the scaling of them, because they may actually be terrible, who knows. So other than wildcard using my money and your money for something we didn't want or paid for, what else is wrong with this? Well, if you're a low to mid-end PC user, you're probably shaking your fist at the screen while watching that promo going, that is not what ARK looks like to me, I look like I'm watching a claymation video. And you'd be right, because the fact that there's been almost no optimization for the PC for about 6 months now. There's been tiny little increases, but on average the low to mid user is probably going to be getting, what, 30, 40 FPS, 45 max, which is kind of unacceptable for a year and a half of development. I know they've been adding new content, and yes, you can use that as a shield for a bit, but really need some optimization now, because a lot of people who bought it originally probably still can't play it, or have had to upgrade to play it, which is not the, the aim of the development process. And personally, as a community, I think we've been waiting quite a while for these patch notes to actually be reality. Pretty much every single one of these, apart from a few, have been in for nearly a year now. Procedurally generated arcs has been talked about in recent months, so that's fair enough. But dynamic bridges should have come out with the redwoods. All the other ones have been there for nearly a year. There's been no mention of tech tier or the vehicles, which you may have noticed. Remember when they had the mod contest when people were making cars, the modders, and they actually worked? I mean, they weren't great, but they did actually work. Remember about a year ago when that was mentioned? Still no cars. Tech tier. Still no tech tier. I mean, aquatic breeding. That was a really cool idea. Still not in. DirectX 12, which would help low to mid tier computers and users. Yeah, no, that's been there for a year, nearly. That was last November, I think, when that was first mentioned. I mean, the last time I played, you still fell through boats if you logged off. People falling through the floor, dinos falling through the floor, and all the rest of that should not be a thing at this point in development. And this is where a lot of people will get defensive about it and go, yeah, but it's early access. It's like, yeah, but if it's got a DLC, is it early access? Because technically, it's already got an expansion. Expansions don't happen for early access games. And if an early access game has an expansion, is it truly early access? Because you've just bought an expansion for a game which isn't actually released? Which is where the debate lies, because I personally feel that an expansion should not happen until it's fully finished development or been out of alpha, which it should be in a beta phase, at which point it's not early access anymore. Then you can say you've got an expansion. That's the point where you can say, okay, here's another bit for the game, but you have to pay for it. Another thing which kind of annoys me is, if you noticed this flaming crossbow arrow, the whip, all the other stuff, that's stuff that should be in the base game. We paid for the development of those items, but we don't get to use it unless we buy your DLC. I don't fucking think so. All this, and I've not even got into the rebalancing of the old dinos, such as the mammoth, which is eclipsed by a beaver, and the fact that we have Apache, which does nothing, and people have suggested actually really good suggestions on the subreddit that were not listened to, such as the Apache headbutt. When it headbutts a rock, it gives some spark powder and maybe a bit of flint. That's a good idea. That would actually make it actually worthwhile having, rather than being a piece of shit nobody touches. Yeah! But I'm not going to go too far into that, because obviously anything can change at any point. But the final bit I am going to end with is rock golems and dragons are going to be able to come into the base game and basically screw over anybody who doesn't have the DLC because there's going to be additional buildings, items, cosmetics, and you'll be able to bring over your characters from the other game. How in any way is this balanced? Because as far as I'm aware, no testing team has actually touched this other than the internal one, which will be a very small testing group. Although having not owned this DLC, and I'm never going to own it unless it becomes free, because it's just against everything I paid for in the game, please let me know if any of the things I've said are wrong. I would be curious to see if these are not really that OP, but they seem like they would be. And while finishing up this video, I found a nice little interview between Rapzak, who is one of the devs, and Polygon. And they've said that they don't want to charge players any more than they have to, which is why they've given away a lot of free DLC, which is a map and Primitive Plus. Both were broken on release, thanks for that. And were originally made by modders, so let's not forget that. And on top of that, this is apparently their final vision, or what they want it to look like in the end. And my first thoughts of that are, they're dragons, not dinosaurs, which is kind of not what the whole point of the game was. And on top of that, you've also said you're going to do more DLC. And really it's the closing statement that does it for me, and that's the bit that says, we plan to release it close to the launch of the game, so why sit on it? Let's get it out there and let players enjoy it. Well, I would, because I technically did put money into it, as did everybody who bought the base game, but you've made it so we have to buy a game we paid for that we didn't ask for. But anyway, that's the end of this video. Let me know what you think. Are you annoyed? Did you buy it? Do you think that the new dinos slash dragons slash golems are going to be OP? Are they OP? Let me know what you think if you're playing it right now. Give me a like, a dislike, whatever you think. Comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Although if I had to judge off Reddit, I'd say 80% of the player base is pretty annoyed right now with Wildcard, and justifiably so. I am in the same boat. I haven't played for a while, and I probably won't be playing for a long while. Now this DLC is basically making it pay to win. Anyway, I'll see you next time.